Hi guys, my name is Dan Reimold. I'm a journalism professor, author, reporter, and student media advisor. Read my book, Journalism of Ideas, or check out my blog, College Media Matters. But first, join me in a collective sigh of exasperation about an absurd situation that is currently playing out centered on the University of Oklahoma. Believe it or not, one of the country's leading talent agencies, the William Morris Endeavor Entertainment Agency, has announced it is placing the school on a blacklist and will do everything it can to ensure that none of the artists, comedians, other entertainers that it represents will perform at the school ever again. Why? All thanks to a perfectly reasonable, totally newsworthy, journalistically sound article that appeared in the Oklahoma Daily, the student newspaper at UO. This is absolutely ridiculous and utterly worthy of a full-blown rant. Okay, so here's the gist of the situation. The rock star Jack White, formerly of the White Stripes, performed at the University of Oklahoma last Monday night. Before his visit, the Oklahoma Daily published an article laying out the details of the contract that he signed to perform at the school. It included the amount he was paid, roughly $80,000 by the way, the guy does not come cheap, and it reported on some of the wackier stuff that White and his crew laid out in the rider of the contract. That's the part where performers lay out some of their more specific requests and demands, where they get kind of personal with some of the stuff. Some of the things that White had in the contract were frankly kind of random, and a few were downright hilarious. He banned bananas, for example, from the building where he would be performing. They dubbed it the No Banana Tour. They did not want to see any bananas in the building, in the venue in which he would be performing. He wanted some prosciutto and salmon that was aged just right and a knife to cut stuff up. And then the wildest part, he had a detailed recipe for what they called fresh homemade guacamole. And just laid it all out. They wanted the avocados chopped just so and mushed together. It was crazy stuff. And then he even had some basically unconstitutional restrictions saying no photos and videos could be taken of him both inside and outside the venue, the building where he would be performing. And that ended up being problematic as the language was written, because technically that would mean that he would not be able to have shots taken of him from people who were standing on public property. Basically unconstitutional, not something he'd be able to get away with. But bottom line, the Daily laid all this out in a very even keel, frankly kind of positive article. It was not a gut punch. It did not seem like they were attempting to simply embarrass him. They were just laying out the facts and reminding people about the show. From what I saw, it went maybe D-list viral online at the time at best. It wasn't something that was getting national attention or was blowing up in any big way. But White apparently got angry about it. He went off on a mini rant about the article and about the fact that the Daily had revealed, some of that stuff in the rider and the guacamole recipe and all that. It was somewhat indecipherable, but the gist seemed to be that he was saying that it was shoddy journalism, and just because it was available to publish doesn't mean they should have. And he was calling out some of the Daily staffers, as non-journalists. Just because you can type on a computer doesn't make you a journalist, was one of the phrases that most in the audience were able to actually understand. So here are 3 points I want to make about all this. Number one, the Daily did not steal this contract Houdini style from a vault. It is not an illegal leak that someone passed along to them. This is a public document. It's a government contract in many ways because of the fact that the University of Oklahoma is a public school. They filed a very ordinary Freedom of Information Act request to obtain the document and then look through it. And we're looking for, newsworthy, or just plain interesting information. And they found both. I mean, part of the reason here, the underlying rationale behind requesting the document was that, along with giving a review of the show, they wanted to see how much this was costing the school. And subsequently also costing students, because students had put in some of the student fees money into the pot apparently was used for this concert. And $80,000, I don't care if you are at a major university in this country, is a lot of money to pay a performer. And they weren't saying that it was too much or not enough, but they were simply letting people know the number. And also making sure that students knew some of your fees money was being put into that pool for it. And then of course you come across the singular aspects, the rider of the contract. There isn't a journalist in this country who is going to ignore these crazy, wacky things like this, page-long, detailed guacamole recipe and some of the other stuff that he had in there. They reported on it very fairly, in their piece, and all was well. So the second point here, William Morris, the talent agency that represents White and a slew of other A-listers and some B-listers and C-listers, has put OU on this blacklist purportedly so that their performers aren't embarrassed by coming to campus and I guess getting the same treatment, having the details of their contract laid out publicly. First, it's a completely ridiculous notion that they are blaming the paper for any sort of embarrassment. The OU Daily didn't set out to embarrass Jack White. It reported the truth. White embarrassed himself with all those crazy demands. And if he's truly mad, and there is some discrepancy, some people felt like in the audience he was just going off and it was kind of a meta mock protest simply to vent a little bit and then go back to his show. But if he's truly embarrassed in any way, then he should be mad at the William Morris agency for leaving him open to putting these demands in a contract that was a public document and that was going to be easily obtainable and shareable by a journalist. That's just bad representation of your client. And also, what does he have to be embarrassed about? The guy, from what I read in the Daily Beast article about him, is, quote, the last true rock star. I read the demands and some of the things he had in the rider and laughed. I maybe kind of like him even more. I don't follow his music much nowadays, but, we all want to be rock stars. And, what's the point if you can't make some of these outrageous demands and get paid a decent amount and have a good time? I mean, the guy likes guacamole, apparently. He doesn't like bananas. I thought it was fantastic. So I think this embarrassment thing is taking it a little too far. And the third point I want to make about all this is to make no mistake. This is censorship. A bit indirect, perhaps, but just as powerful and downright devious. This is a top-flight talent agency keeping its stars from setting foot on a major university campus, blaming that on a student press report, and thus telling the public and other students at the school and UO supporters and people in general that you have to hide the truth and not obtain publicly available documents if you want William Morris represented stars to appear on your campus. So we are asking you to self-censor and clamp down, or very indirectly threatening to withhold entertainment, and their artists. If the student paper and other journalists in the area do not wise up and stop reporting on these crazy things called truth. That is censorship, any way you slice it. And yes, that was a prosciutto joke. Bottom line, the idea that we are still using the term and concept of a blacklist in 2015 is both frightening and downright infuriating. This really makes me mad. William Morris is being catty, they're being small-minded, they're being censorious, and I'm calling on other student and professional media to raise awareness about this and hopefully educate them, or heck, embarrass them into changing their minds. Okay, that's my rant for the day. Thank you guys. Take care.